It's still August, but I have got the fall gardening fever. Now I've got my pole beans planted and I've got my fall cucumbers planted, and they are just starting to come up, and I got really good germination on those, so I'm really happy about that. But now it's time to get some of these other plots ready for some cool weather crops. In the next few weeks we'll be starting some transplants in the greenhouse, so we need to get these plots ready for when those transplants get ready, we can stick them in the ground. We've got several plots here in the dream garden that have some nice looking cover crops on them, but it's time to start extinguishing or starting to get rid of those cover crops so we can get these areas ready for fall planting. And today I want to show you how we start to do that. Behind me here I've got a really thick and dense crop of sorghum Sudan grass. Looks really good. It's about almost shoulder tall in some spots, but as you can see here, it's starting to go to seed, so we need to do something with it. Now this sorghum Sudan grass is so thick and so tall that I don't really have a mower that can get in there and mow this kind of vegetation right here. Now I could use Dad's flail mower, but I don't have that with me at the moment, so we're going to try something a little different. We're going to try to crimp this stuff. We're going to basically try to lay it down. And I'm going to try to take my riding lawnmower and lay the deck all the way down as low as it'll go and run over this stuff. And the goal here is to kind of break it or fold it down so it lays down on the ground. Once we've got it laying down, we can then come lay our tarp on top of it, and the tarp will help kill all that vegetation there. So we're going to take our riding lawnmower and see if we can just lay this stuff down so we can get in here and get the tarp on top of it. Well, that actually worked pretty dang good. That's the first time I've ever tried doing that, just putting the mower deck all the way down, not turning the blades on, just to kind of bend it over. Now it didn't lay it down quite as much as if we would have had an actual roller or crimper, but it laid it down good enough where we can get in here and put our tarp over this stuff and start to kill this stuff back. So let's go get our tarp and we'll put it on this plot. So this here is our 6 meal silage tarp that we can use to extinguish a cover crop like we're doing today, or we can use it to create a whole new garden plot on somewhere in the yard you might have just grass growing. We need to kill this vegetation here before we can come in here and lightly cultivate this soil and prepare it for planting. Obviously we don't want to use a herbicide to do that. We can't till it right now because it would just choke down our tiller with all this green vegetation here. So we can lay this tarp on it, and it's a really easy way to go ahead and kill all this stuff so then we can get in there and work the soil. As far as the silage tarp goes, we actually have a new size available on the website. We started out with a 40 by 50, which is good for a larger garden, but now we also have a 40 by 30 version for some of you with the smaller gardens. And that's going to work almost perfect for these plots in my dream garden, which are 30 by 35. I'll have to fold it over a little bit on the ends, but it should work pretty well. So let's get this thing spread out over this area right here, and let's put the bricks on it. If you'll notice, I laid the sorghum Sudan grass down all in one direction, so it would be easier for me to lay this tarp over the area. So let's get to it. Alright, so we got our silage tarp put on top of that sorghum Sudan grass that we crimped down with the lawnmower. Now my plan here is to let that die off, and then I want to come in here and I'm going to compost and I'm going to lightly till it. Now it should only take about 2 weeks for this stuff to actually die. As hot as it's been being, from my experiences, it won't take very long. So in 2 weeks what I'll do is I'll fold that tarp over, and I'm going to come in here and put about 1 inch or 2 of compost over the entire plot. This plot here needs some work, so we're going to compost the whole thing. And then I'm gonna come in here with my tiller and I'm just gonna lightly till the first couple inches of soil there, just to kind of cultivate it so I can plant in it when I get ready to. Now the tilling process is also going to probably bring up a few weed seeds, so we want to put the tarp back on it for another couple weeks to kill any of those weed seeds that get brought to the surface. And then when we pull this tarp off in say 4 to 5 weeks, when we're ready to put our transplants in, this soil should be nice and pretty, and we shouldn't have to do anything to it but just pull the tarp off, maybe lay our drip tape and plant. So now that we've got our sorghum Sudan grass taken care of, let's walk on over to our Browntop millet plot and see what our plan of action is going to be over there. This plot here is where we planted our Browntop millet cover crop, and this stuff started going to seed a few days ago, and so it was time to do something with this plot here. We're still going to tarp this plot, but we've got a little different game plan before we tarp it. Now this millet can get tall like the sorghum Sudan grass if it's planted thin enough. I planted this really thick on purpose because I wanted to suppress weeds. I had a little weed issue in here with my winter squash, so I wanted to have a dense mat of vegetation so I didn't have any new weed growth. So this stuff only got probably about knee high. So since it wasn't as tall, I was able to get in here with my push mower and already mow it one time. I'm going to mow it one more time before we put the tarp on it, and I'm going to lower the mower deck down a little bit when I do that. So this here's my little push mower that I use to mow my walkways in my dream garden. And this thing has a mulching deck kit on it, which means when it cuts the grass, it's going to leave it right there. It's not going to blow it all over the place. And I like that for my pathways so I'm not blowing grass into my garden plots. But it also works really good for mowing down these cover crops. When we're mowing those cover crops, we want to leave all that biomass there so it feeds the soil in that plot. We don't want to spray it out everywhere into the yard. So the first time I cut this millet here, I had the deck all the way up just so I could get through it. It was a little thick. Now I'm going to lower this deck down and kind of really cut it close, and that's going to help speed up the breakdown of this vegetation so we can get in this plot sooner and plant some fall crops sooner. Alright, so we got that mowed pretty close there, and as you can see, even though that millet didn't get that tall, we got some nice, good green material there to help feed that soil. We'll tarp that in there and let that decompose really nicely. Alright, so I'm going to go grab a 30 by 40 tarp and put it on this plot just like I did with the sorghum Sudan grass plot. As you can see here, it doesn't take a lot of fancy equipment to do this cover cropping technique to build your soils. All it really took us today was a lawnmower and then the tarp. So we use the lawnmower to either crimp it or mow it, and then we use the tarp to break it down and help to get it ready for planting. So just about anybody can do it. Doesn't take a big flail mower or a big tractor at all. You can do it on a very small scale, just like we're doing here. So get your gardens ready for fall. Fall planting is right around the corner if it isn't already here. I'll put some links below to our cover crops and our silage tarps so you can check those out. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.